There is a lesson that every internet user has to learn sooner or later. Look before you click. And now, the ways we've all learned this lesson have changed a lot over the years. For the latecomers, they basically learned this lesson through things like rickrolls. And in the Windows XP days, you basically just clicked the wrong link and got a ton of viruses. Screamers, that was another one. But the classic way to learn this lesson is through a shock site. Your friend sends you a link on AIM, oh, check out this funny website, and you click it and it's not a funny website. It's something totally nasty and not at all what you were expecting. And there's been a lot of those throughout the years, but before Meat Spin, before Tub Girl, before Lemon Party, there was one site that set the standard. And that's why today I'm going to tell you the story of the great-granddaddy of them all. This is the legend of Goatse. Goatse is probably the most famous shock website to have ever existed on the internet, and probably the first one that you remember. On the off chance that you don't know what Goatse.cx was, though, basically you clicked the link and you were treated to the site of a guy bent over with his hands dug way into his ass, stretching it as wide as you could imagine, wider than thought humanly possible. Obviously, I can't show this to you on YouTube. What I can show you is some of the many references people made to it. The site also contained another pic nicknamed The Giver, which depicted a guy with a giant cock, but that image was nowhere near as famous as The Receiver, probably because once you clicked on Goatse.cx, you didn't really stick around that long. The way most people came across the website was basically like a prank, like a rickroll where your friend sends you a link in AIM, a message board, email, and you click on it, and then bam, there's a fucking giant asshole in your face. So let's go to the beginning of Goatse. The site began in 1999 with just the basic giver and receiver images and a counter of how many people had visited the website. In just a few months, the site had received over 300,000 views, which was absolutely ridiculous for the time. However, the counter was eventually reset, possibly accidentally, and then deleted altogether. And from that point on, Goatse would undergo occasional updates. At one point, both pictures were removed and the site merely read, "What are you doing here?" Although I can't be 100% certain, I think that update might have signaled the beginning of their ongoing legal troubles. And Goatse did eventually inspire legislation relating to misleading links online. US Code 2252C, misleading words or digital images on the internet. In general, whoever knowingly embeds words or digital images into the source code of a website with the intent to deceive a person into viewing material constituting obscenity shall be fined under this title and imprisoned for not more than 10 years. Whether or not legal threats had anything to do with the images being removed, they were shortly returned, but now with a disclaimer. This site contains content that may be offensive to some audiences and is certainly intended for a mature audience, not to mention one with a good sense of humor. For this reason, the maintainers of this site would like to request that discretion and common sense please be used in sharing the link to this site, especially in the case of posting to a public forum that may be available to minor audiences. Finally, the maintainers cannot, for obvious reasons, be responsible for the actions of third parties. And this disclaimer was quickly changed to a much less professional sounding one. The Goatse.cx lawyer has informed us that we need a warning. So, if you are under the age of 18 or find this photograph offensive, please don't look at it. Thank you. Of course, by the time you've read this disclaimer, you already got a face full of asshole. As the site's reputation grew, it also began to aggregate links to other weird websites, in particular urinalpoop.com, which I had covered previously on the channel, and dolphinsex.org, which I plan on possibly eventually covering. In 2003, the site was once again updated, this time with the promise of merch. Important note, there are many merchandising attempts for Goatse.cx around the web. None of them are real, none of them are official. Do not buy this gimmick merchandise. The official Goatse.cx merchandise is coming soon. This promise, however, would go unfulfilled as Goatse.cx was removed from the internet in January of 2004. You see, .cx websites belong to an Australian territory named Christmas Island. And it was a resident busybody of Christmas Island named Rhonda Clark who went through the trouble of filing a formal complaint to get Goatse.cx taken down. Her litany of grievances included numerous posts with embedded links to internet forums and news groups which do not contain warnings of adult or obscene content. I Can Watch United Nations Internet Forum, among others. Links to unlawful obscene content. Site which describes how to have sex with dolphins. A representative of the Christmas Island Internet Administration, Garth Miller, quickly reviewed the complaint. I appreciate that the Christmas Island community takes immense pride in its natural beauty, of which the spinning dolphins are an important part, and note that the links to the Dolphin Sex website would have been highly offensive to the users of the IT Center, particularly children. As the link clearly constitutes a breach of the spirit and letter of the terms of use which prohibits communication, publication, or distribution either directly or by way of embedded links of images or materials where that communication, publication, or distribution would constitute a criminal offense. As you will note from the attached Nation Master article, Goatse.cx is a well-known shock site, which is intended, one can assume, to be humorous. Although we have received numerous informal complaints, most have raised objections to the images. Although the images could generally be considered to be offensive and crude, they do not represent child or other forms of illegal pornography. By internet standards, the imagery, although intentionally offensive, is relatively tame. In other words, Garth has seen some shit. The intentional posting of embedded links without useful disclaimer to a site which contains obscene or adult content is a violation of the CIIA AUP and terms of use of our network. Generally, CIIA prefers to work with registrants to cure minor breaches which may have occurred or which they may not be aware of. Registrants are generally given an opportunity to cure a breach before a final decision on an AUP complaint is made. In the case of Goatse.cx, which contains only 2 prominent links at the bottom of the site, one of which is to the Dolphin Sex site, it is hard to fathom that the registrant was not aware that this would not constitute a violation of the AUP. As noted in the attached article, Goatse.cx is not a passive website and homepage or the like, but one of the internet's more popular shock sites. It is common practice for many internet trolls and third parties to embed hidden links to the site. There's compelling anecdotal evidence to suggest that most viewers to the site are in some way tricked into viewing it, and there can be no doubt that the object of the site is to offend its viewers, many of which may be minors. The registrant provides advice that he has received legal advice which has recommended he place a warning on his site, yet this warning appears directly above, and in clear view of an image he himself suggests legally requires a disclaimer. This being the case, I have asked Brad to suspend the site immediately pending further review and notification of the registrant. There can be no doubt that will be viewed by some as censorship and a restriction of freedom of speech. However, the board has specifically drafted policies which give CIIA latitude to act in the absence of a court order when there is a compelling public interest in doing so, prevent the spread and publication of child pornography or other unlawful activity. The freedom of speech does not extend to use of our community-owned network to facilitate unlawful activity or to intentionally harass or offend internet users. So despite the fact that Goatse.cx couldn't control how other people were using their website, they were still banned. At this point, Goatse.cx was replaced by a message from the Council of Country Code Administrators, or CACA. So Goatse.cx was gone. But its legend had already been cemented. And what of the picture itself? A giant spread asshole doesn't just manifest itself through the power of the internet alone. It had to come from somewhere. And it was Encyclopedia Dramatica that broke the story of the Goatse man's identity. One very persistent internet user spent months and months trolling all the gay erotica and anal-stretching newsgroups and eventually located the star of this picture by matching the pattern of moles on his ass. It is with many lulls that ED advises the world that the Goatse guy's real name is Kirk Johnson, and he posts pictures and videos of himself regularly on the newsgroup alt.binaries.erotica.mail.anal. The original Goatse picture was part of a series of many more images that was originally uploaded in 1997. The pictures made their way through news groups, message boards, and eventually StyleProject.com before reaching legendary status on Goatse.cx. And throughout the years, there have been many death hoaxes about Kirk Johnson, beginning with a post on SomethingAwful.com alleging that he died from shoving a volleyball up his ass. However, he's definitely alive, at least as of 2 years ago, keeping an active online presence, posting to his channels on Pornhub and other websites. And like Kirk Johnson himself, Goatse.cx wasn't quite done yet. After Kaka had released the URL back into circulation, it had changed hands many times. Mostly through speculators who realized that there was a lot of money to be made by having a very famous website. But nothing was actually done with it until 2010, when Goatse.cx was set to become an email provider. That's right, you too could have your very own @Goatse.cx email address. And in 2012, an Indiegogo campaign was launched for the service. The campaign raised over 20 grand, but unfortunately, it never actually came to fruition. 2 years later, another video would be released, this time with the promise of Goatse.cx subdomains. As of now, it seems like that hasn't materialized either, which is a damn shame because I would love to have wang.goatse.cx. And in another video that's been deleted and I couldn't seem to dig up, the Goatse lawyer returned, this time to promote Dogecoin and also announce a coming cryptocurrency known as Goatse Coin. But like all the other projects in the past, it seems like Goatse Coin never actually materialized either. And this brings us to the present day. If you visit Goatse.cx now, you'll be greeted by a mostly gray screen with a few small images. One of them being my logo for some reason. Apparently now you can buy pixels on Goatse.cx for Ethereum and put whatever images you want there, so thank you whoever bought ad space on Goatse.cx for me. I feel like you reached out to me at some point and told me you did it, but I don't remember who it was. You're probably watching this video, so please remind me. And considering that whoever it is that actually owns Goatse.cx seems to keep on trying to make more and more projects, I don't think that this is the last we've heard of that site. But as of now, that's it for the Goatse story. If you liked this video, you will definitely also like my video about 2 Girls, 1 Cup. I'm out of here.